And we're live at 1:35 on with Dr. Kris from the Research Clinic, Peptides and Age Management. Welcome, Dr. Kris.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm excellent. How's your week been going?
It's been busy, but good. Little uptick of COVID in our area, seeing a little bit more of it, or at least in our practice, we've been seeing a little bit more. But weather's good. It's going to be in the night. Well, you probably will be too, but I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe it's going to be like 95 Sunday. I hope this is it. I'm ready for a little cooler weather.
Ready for a change?
I am. I'm not ready for the time change, though. That's always the worst part of this time of year, in my opinion.
So, usually around the time change part of the year is when we start seeing flus and colds and allergies and things going on. And so, today we wanted to talk about aging and how it impacts your immune system. And then, what are some of the things that we can do, including peptides, to really boost our immune system?
Yeah, that's such a vast topic. I completely agree with you. I mean, it's such an important thing to age properly and keep our immune system working as functional as possible.
So, first of all, help us, as we're getting older, we're knowing that, I get a little stuffy and I've never really had allergies, but I notice it at certain times I start to get stuffy. And so I think as we age, things change. What's happening when we're starting to experience things that we haven't really been part of normal life before?
Well, a few different things can be happening, but first of all, as we experience allergens over and over, we can start to get more sensitive to those allergens. And certainly, we have different allergy seasons. If the weather, like if it's hotter for an extended period of time, things die. But if it's cooler and more wet, then a lot of things bloom, and that can play a big role in it. But so much of it is related to our immune system. As we age, our immune system isn't, for most of us, is not nearly as functional as it was when we were younger. And as we get older, our T cells and B cells and macrophages, those cells that we produce in order to, you know, have an immune system, a proper immune system, starts to wane. And that's why some of the things we're going to talk about today is really important, not only to try and make more of these immune cells, but also making sure that the ones that we have are as functional as possible.
So, the common theme that we're going to notice as we go through these conversations, the more healthy our cells, the better we're set up to fight the things that we encounter in our environment. No.
Yeah, and I heard it said this way. Actually, I was telling you earlier. I listened to a lot of other podcasts myself on these different topics. I like to get everybody's perspective, and we're trying to make healthy cells communicate better with other healthy cells, or at least nearly healthy cells. But we're also trying to even make what we would maybe term sick cells function better and have all cells communicating in a more proper manner. And the better that a cell communicates with another cell, it's a very simplistic thought, but I think it's very accurate. The better our cells are able to communicate and communicate properly, then the overall better the body does, including the immune system, which is so important for us.
So, for the layman, the person that didn't go to medical school like me, I avoided science and math and chemistry and the things that were frustrating. I'm on the creative side. Help us envision a little bit how the system functions in our body. And here's why I'm asking. When I understand simple concepts, then it's easier for me to get past whatever the excuses are or the reasoning. And if I start to understand, then it makes it easier for me to adopt more healthy
Changes.
behaviors.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard this asked in a little bit different way on another podcast, and I thought it was actually I think it's a great question actually, and I will answer it. They also asked, how do you know if your immune system is good? How do you know that? And I thought that that was a very interesting question. There is no real we certainly can do blood tests that tells us your immune system is very poor, but we don't really have tests that say, oh, your immune system is fantastic, other than doing inflammatory markers and things of that nature. But the physician I was listening to, I thought hit the nail on the head, and it's all on how you feel. In other words, if you feel poor, if your energy is low, if you're sleeping bad, if you're sluggish, if you're tired, it is extremely unlikely that you have a good immune system, because how you feel and your immune system are absolutely tied together. And if you feel great, and if your energy is great, and you're sleeping great, and you feel like your stress is low, there's an extremely high probability that your immune system is functioning properly. But going back to your actual question was, kind of explain the immune system. Most of our immune cells are produced in our thymus gland, which is a little gland that sits in our neck. And as we get older, the thymus, and not to be confused with the thyroid gland, although they are close together, but it's thymus gland. And that's why you will recognize like thymosin alpha 1 or thymosin beta 4, because those are ones that are produced, and actually their function is to work on the thymus gland. But the thymus gland produces these T cells and B cells, and these are our defense cells. These are our warriors, if you want to call it like that. Whenever they recognize something that's not supposed to be there, they're the ones that's going to, I always like to tell my patients, they're the ones that's going to capture them, imprison them, and kill them. Okay. It's kind of how it works, or at least protect the body the best it can against these things. The spleen also plays a role in immune system. And so, but again, as we start to get older, when we're young, most of us can get away with nearly anything, in my opinion. You can get away with a bad diet. You can get away with not exercising. You can get away with not sleeping properly. And that's an exaggeration. So you can get away with anything, but you can get away with a lot. Okay. Mm-hmm. And as we start to age, and that aging is different for everyone, but typically when we start entering the 30 plus age range, and some of us more than others, these bad habits start to build up upon us and start to show negative effects. The main place is in our immune system. Again, cellular function, cellular efficiency, cellular communication. We all go back to the cells. And our immune system, a proper immune system is many times going to be the make or break in how we feel. So that's kind of a long answer to that question, but I just thought that the other question was worthwhile talking about, like, how do I know my immune system is good?
Yeah. So sometimes, though, we don't realize we're not feeling good. Sometimes you're in a bad mood, but you don't know it, or we become acclimated or used to how we feel is not the best, and it's shocking when you do improve that you didn't realize that.
Yeah, and we deal with that all the time in our patients, especially with hormonal imbalance. And hormonal imbalance plays a crucial role into our immune system as well. But I'll get a lot of patients that maybe their spouse has them come in because they're, the spouse is our patient. The spouse feels better. It's many times the husband's like, I feel fine. There's nothing wrong. I mean, you got the spouse in the corner behind them shaking their head. No, they don't. And and then you get them feeling better. And they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how good I felt. Or vice versa. People start to feel better, like, let's say, on hormonal replacement, nutrition, and exercise. And then they kind of get complacent with how they feel, and they forget how they felt. And they'll fall off the wagon for a month or two, and they revert back to how they felt. Like, oh my gosh, I guess I did really feel tremendously worse. And, I think all of us at some point, as we do these changes in life, we revert a little bit, we try to keep those to short periods of time, maybe a week or two, hopefully not a month or two. But I've seen patients that fall off the wagon for a year or two, and then they come back. So we all kind of have to learn as that goes.
Well, it's frustrating when you start to work on maybe losing some weight or something, but it's not immediate, and you get a little discouraged. But if you really stopped and thought about it, you didn't gain all that weight in just a week or two. You gained that weight, and your condition deteriorated over a long period of time. So it makes sense that it's going to take a long period of time to regain or get back to where you were. No?
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest hill to climb with my patients is this thought that, we're going to go from 0 to 100 in 2 weeks. I'm going to feel like I do today, and I'm going to feel 100% 2 weeks from now. And I think patients, when you bring it up to them kind of like that, they're like, oh yeah, I get it. But we're all kind of, most of us, I think I am. Well, actually, my wife would say I definitely am. I want results immediately. I want to do this. I want to feel better tomorrow. And like weight gain is probably one of the more common discussions that I have with my patients. And I always tell them, you didn't gain it overnight. You're not losing it overnight. It's a whole lot more fun to gain it than it is to lose it. And most of the time, for most of my patients, if they want to lose 15 to 20 plus pounds, we need to look at that as a 9 to 18 month goal, not a 3 to 9 month goal for most patients. Now, I've certainly had patients that can lose 15 or 20 pounds and that less than that, but it becomes quite painful if we want to do it like that. We try to do a gradual, steady weight loss so that we wake up in a year and everything is better.
So we're talking about a gradual, steady loss. And one of the things that has really been enlightening to me in these conversations, and I naturally understood because of the marketing around low testosterone, that as we age, we produce less testosterone. But as we age, we begin to produce less of other things, many other things, peptides being one of them. But I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about aging as a disease, and you have like you begin to have an increased oxidative state and
Mm-hmm.
an increased catabolic state. What does that mean?
Yeah, so aging is an actual disease now. It actually has its own ICD-10 code, which is the billing codes that insurances use. So aging is a disease. It's not just a term anymore. It's a real disease. And that goes back to our previous discussion is why do we age? We age because of poor lifestyle habits. We age because, or why do we age more rapidly? I guess let's put it that way. Why do we age more rapidly? Because of sometimes genetics plays a role, but poor exercise habits, poor nutritional habits, and also cell senescence, stress, and cellular inefficiency instead of cellular efficiency. Catabolic state is simply, when we're younger, we're in a anabolic state. We're building the body. We're gaining muscle. We're gaining bone. We're getting bigger, stronger, faster. And then we hit this phase to where our body starts to tear itself down. And that's a catabolic state. And so, like at my age, I'm about to, I'm closing in on 50 fairly rapidly, 48 and a half. I really want to watch my muscle mass. I want to make sure, because I see so many patients that become worried about their muscle mass when they hit 60, 62. Well, it's really hard at that point to really, that's something we should have prepared for probably 10 years prior.
Wow.
Because I realized that it's probably not realistic for me at 48 unless I really change my exercise routine and get really diligent in trying to add more muscle mass. I'm probably not going to add a ton more muscle mass at 48. So now it's about maintaining. Then it's about, hopefully not starting to lose that muscle mass as long as I can, because as I tell my patients, what's the one thing that commonly that's not cancer, that's not a stroke or a heart attack, that dramatically alters an elderly person's life? Fall and fracture. Granny was, her mom was out in the front yard and tripped on the water hose, fell down, broke her hip. Granny was never the same from that day on, and that's because of sarcopenia, a loss of muscle mass, along with osteopenia or osteoporosis. So thinning bones, thinning muscles, if you want to look at it like that. And, oxidative stress, that's simply the stress that our body is in, that we've talked about a lot. It goes right back to cellular efficiency and cellular communication. The better that we can do those things, the less oxidative stress we have in our bodies, and the less, again, catabolic state is one of those things that really just ties into our nutrition, our exercise, our hormones, peptides. All those things are just so important. I kind of think of catabolic state and oxidative state kind of as one, honestly.
So thinking about the things that we need as we age, we're fighting against like a loss of appetite, maybe a loss of sleeping well. Why are these so impactful in the speed of our age? Um, yeah, our aging.
Yeah, well, those type of stresses, again, it kind of goes back to when we're younger, we can handle these stresses better, and as we get older, we don't handle them as well, and we're just not functioning as well, which causes dysfunction in other parts of the body, like people who say, and I struggle with sleep personally. It's one of those things that, despite everything, it's gotten better, but my sleep is nowhere what like it was 8 to 10 years ago, and it's not, and the one thing I talk about with my patients who are in my age range and above that all seem to struggle with is sleep. I mean, it's one of those things that, getting good sleep. And I think it's really important for our patients to monitor their sleep. There's so many great what technology ways now to monitor your sleep, because so many people just say, well, I don't sleep good. Well, okay, how do you know that? Well, I feel tired and I wake up. Okay, well, you're probably right. But one of the big things that people need to be screened for is sleep apnea. A lot of people have sleep apnea. They're stopping breathing in their sleep, which
Hmm.
you will not get good sleep if you have sleep apnea. But I wear the Aura ring. The NBA bubble. Everyone in the NBA bubble wears one of these, and it monitors your temperature, your heart rate, your breathing patterns, your sleep cycles, and it's really informative for me to monitor my sleep and see how it's changing and try to relate that back to things. Oh yeah, I did have a big meal right before I tried to go to bed, or you know what, I did have 3 or 4 beers last night an hour before I went to bed. Another big thing is getting some sunlight, getting outside every day if we can, and spending 30 minutes to an hour with some good sunlight. That helps sleep so much. Ketone esters before bed, as we've talked about before, helps sleep. Loss of appetite, that's, I haven't had that one. I feel like my appetite goes up, not down, but a lot of people do it, especially our senior patients. They do struggle with, I think two things kind of happens there is their appetite starts to go down. And as it starts to go down, they start snacking a lot and they start gravitating to worse foods, things that they can grab and open and eat. I always say, try not to eat out of a bag or a box if you can help it. But as we get older,
Hmm.
especially if it's just you and your spouse and you're both the same age, or maybe you're by yourself, you start to grab those things that people just grab off the shelves. Cooking a full meal is for 1 or 2 people who are going to eat 8 bites doesn't seem worth it anymore. But I think that all goes back to simply keeping your health up. As that catabolic state starts to kick in and get worse, I think that's when that appetite starts to really drop. Because, as you probably know, I've also dealt a lot with geriatrics, and it's the common battle we have with the geriatrics is just getting them to eat. I mean, because when you quit eating, truly quit eating like you're supposed to, life is over. It's just how long is it going to last? Because your body has to have proper nutrition. I always tell my patients, we're kind of like cars, but we're not. Like, we can only live so long without nutrition, but we don't have the option of just running out of gas. So our body will do lots of things to try to slow it down, try to prevent it, but the outcome will be the same. If you throw me on a desert island and I don't eat forever, I will eventually die from, malnutrition. And that's so much of what our elderly do. And as they're not eating properly, they're losing more bone, they're losing more muscle. It's just speeding that catabolic phase up. So I just think in our age range and younger is when to fix this problem to hopefully avoid it as we get older.
So, what are some of the things that we can do to keep our health up and also complement or support our immune system as we get into this time when we're going to see a lot of people fighting colds, feeling
Yeah.
crampy? Hmm.
I think one of the things that's been kind of not, I don't know if you, I was going to use the word funny is that, now with COVID, somehow we've forgotten that we can get everything else too. Because everything is COVID until proven otherwise. Like, oh, my stomach hurts, COVID. Oh, my throat hurts, COVID. And it's just crazy now how everything is COVID until proven otherwise. And allergies have been extremely bad for most Texans in the last month. I know my family has suffered from it a lot. I've suffered a lot from it. The one thing I found interesting is they're starting to change their attitude about the flu season and starting to think this flu season, although we need to prepare and although we need to do the things that we're about to talk about, might be a little bit less severe than in the past. And that's because we're all, well, all of us, a lot of us, if you're following the rules, you're lowering your chance of getting the flu because we're social distancing, we're wearing masks, we're, if we don't feel good, we're staying home. So you're less likely to give it to your whole office building full of people. And so I've heard a lot of the infectious disease specialists now really predicting, they're feeling like, hopefully that this is going to be a little bit easier flu season. But I think as we enter the flu season, all it does is reinforce what we should have already been doing. And that is, and really, I heard Dr. Seed say this the other day, and I thought it was a really profound statement. Let's at least learn one thing from this pandemic. Let's take care of our immune system all the time, not just when there's a pandemic.
Right.
Because it's something that if we do 365 days a year for the next, hopefully many years, we're going to be so much healthier at the end of this versus if we didn't do this. So, the immune system is one of those things that many of these things are so simple. There's such a multitude of things that you can do for your immune system. And I'm just going to kind of rattle off a few of them, but huge fan of intermittent fasting. I think it is crucial for our immune system. Again, 16 straight hours of no calorie intake except for water, black coffee, or unsweet tea. Or in my case, I do drink Rooster Booster Light, which is a cute tea, a local energy drink. I have to admit to that. My staff would say I was lying if I didn't say that, but it doesn't have aspartame in it, so I don't like aspartame products. But a calorie-free, not Diet Coke, not Diet Soda, 16 hours, nothing nutritionally or calories wise. And, that's going to really drive those insulin levels down, which is going to help mobilize fat cells for fuel. It's going to be more efficient for cell efficiency. And it's going to help your immune. It's not only going to make you feel better, because it does. It's not only going to make you burn fat cells, which I always joke, most of us have a few extra of those to burn. So that's good. Weight loss from fat loss, and it's also going to boost the immune system. So huge fan, costs nothing, actually saves you money because you're eating less. Okay, so that would be my first thing. Proper exercise routines. I think that all of us should have at least 3 to 4 workouts a week. I think that needs to be a combination of now, again, as long as you can tolerate these things, but you already got it up there. HIIT workouts, you know what I was going to say. So high intensity interval training workouts, so getting that heart rate up as high as you can stand it safely for 20 seconds, bringing it down for 10, up for 20, down for 10. You can do as little as 4 minutes of that and get a tremendous response from your metabolism and your immune system. And then I think I always kind of think of everybody in my age range. So I'm going to say, even though I'm upper 40s, I'm going to say like 35 and up. We need to really be thinking about our resistance training as well. Again, we do not want to get ourselves into that sarcopenic phase where we don't have enough muscle mass down the road. Keeping those bones nice and strong. So exercise and nutrition, extremely important. Hormonal balance. So if you're low on energy, not feeling good, feel like you're in a mental fog, feeling like, one of the things we always say, feeling like your best is behind you instead of in front of you. That's always a good time to get your hormones checked by a qualified provider. I highly recommend bioidentical hormones over synthetic. If you are a candidate, if you do look like you need hormone replacement, I would absolutely recommend instituting proper hormone replacement for your immune system, as well as a multitude of other things.
Talk to us more about the bioidentical hormones. I thought they were only synthetic, and that there's just not a lot of good parts of that. It's kind of like you're in this situation where you got to take these hormones, but there's these side effects. But tell us more about the bioidentical versions.
Yeah, so the webinar I was part of earlier in the week, actually, that was really what the point of the webinar was. And that is so many people have thrown hormone replacement completely under the bus because of that study that came out, gosh, 12 years or so ago now, maybe 15 years ago, that said that women were at higher risk if they used estrogen for strokes, heart attacks, and breast cancer.
Yeah.
And so it just had this blanket feel to physicians, a lot of physicians, not all physicians. And I actually had this feeling at the time. I totally backed away from hormone replacement. I stayed away from it for about 4 or 5 years until my own hormones started to deplete. And then I started changing my opinion on it. But what they did learn from that study is that study was based on Premarin and Prempro, which is the equine estrogen study. And because the most commonly prescribed form of estrogen in women is still Premarin. Premarin is they collect mare urine and take out spin out the estrogen and then put it in a capsule, and boom, there goes your horse estrogen that you take.
Wow.
And that is not bioidentical. It is similar enough that it binds the receptors in your body, and it will give you some of the good effects, such as vaginal dryness going away, the effect on the skin, hot flashes going away. But what it doesn't do is it has too many side effects. So when you're using bioidentical hormones, bioidentical simply means biologic. It's plant-based, and it's 100% identical to what is in your body already, or at least should be in your body already. And so as I tell my ladies when I talk to them about this, I go, and studies have proven this. Okay, so you had estrogen in your body for 48 to 52 years. That's the average age of menopause. Okay. So let's just say 50. You had estrogen in your body for 50 years. At 50 years old, you quit making it, and I gave it back to you exactly like what you had in your body. But now I'm going to cause cancer. How can your body tell if it's 100% bioidentical? And the truth is it doesn't. Actually, we believe it lowers your chance of cancer.
Wow.
And so, and the same way with testosterone, I just feel like, and I've personally been on synthetic testosterone for many years. I will tell you, I feel so much better with bioidentical testosterone than I do with synthetic testosterone. And we could debate that for hours. Hormonal pellets is bioidentical testosterone versus synthetic injectable. All injectable testosterone is synthetic. And so, I see higher incidences of side effect with injectable testosterone. I do prescribe it. I'm not going to claim I don't, because I have patients that come in and are like, I'm only going to do a shot. I will not prescribe those synthetic estrogen. I feel like with synthetic testosterone, I might be causing some side effects, but we can manage it. With synthetic estrogen, I feel like I might be truly harming my patient, and I simply won't do that.
Okay, so we talked about the hormones, the intermittent fasting, some exercising. These are all things to help our cells communicate better and have energy. So now, what are some of the other things that we might want to consider that we weren't aware of?
So ketone esters, as we've talked about before, I'm a huge fan of ketone esters. 5 to 10 cc's once to twice a day really just overall helps with your overall health. But what it really does is helps the cells communicate properly. It actually, I heard it described last week this way: it is instant fuel for the cells, because our cells, basically. Can only use glucose or fatty acids or proteins for source fuel for energy. And it actually prefers, like a ketone ester is the best type of fuel that it can have. And so there's nothing to impede it. It's immediate absorption. And so your cells have the immediate fuel that they need to work properly. And not in addition to that, you also get and I certainly can feel this, but the improvement in brain function, just feeling like the brain fog clears, and it's a really rapid effect. And then, that's not even going into the ketogenic state that we're going into for just a few hours to burn more fat cells to increase our overall athletic performance.
So I struggle to describe to someone as a layman what ketone esters are and how do you take them. Can you help me out? Give me some good words.
Yeah. So I've kind of struggled with that as well. And It's kind of funny you say that. And so that's why I've been watching more and more, because it's one of those things like I know it works and I feel it, but how do I describe it to patients? And actually I heard somebody say this, maybe it was off the Ketone Aid website, but it's actually a food. You need to think of it as a food for your body. Don't really think of it as it's certainly not a medicine. I don't even know if I think of it as a supplement. I would think of it as a food product, although it doesn't break your fast. So that's the good news there. Okay. And just think of it as a food product that because most people these days, when you talk about ketogenesis, they at least have an idea of what you're talking about with ketones within the body. And I think I had it written down. I was making notes. 10 cc's equals 1 millimole of ketones in the body.
What's a millimole?
It's a very small amount, but it's just enough. It's just enough to create that ketogenic state that we're looking for. And so we're not putting ourselves into a nutritional ketogenic state, which is where we deprive the body of carbohydrates to the point that our body starts making ketones. Because as we talked about before, there can be some real negatives, in my opinion, with that. Gallstones, kidney stones go up dramatically with ketogenic state, extended ketogenic states, not for a day or two, but for weeks on end. And I've just had too many patients. The constipation can be quite severe with it, and which also equals your gut health, which your gut health is your immune system again. And so we get the circular pattern. But when we use it, it's like you and I always talk about it. A lot of things are great in small bursts, but if we overdo it, then we're not going to get the effects we're going to want, and we're going to start to get more side effects. Heck, it's like testosterone. I tell my guys, the right amount of testosterone is great, but there is a level that is enough, and then you go above it, and that's when you start to cause problems. It's kind of like that everywhere in life. Everything in moderation is what's best for the most part. Even exercise. You can exercise too much. And we've talked about that. Many of the common problems you see in high-end athletes is over-exercising. And it's really hard to tell an athlete, you need to take a day off. Maybe every third day, every fourth day, take it off. Don't exercise at all. I'm like, what? I mean, I see that all the time with people my age, and they're trying to get in shape, and they're exercising 7 days a week, 2 hours a clip. And I'm like, you can't do that. I mean, you just can't. You're breaking your body down, causing more problems than good. So that's kind of how I explain the ketone esters to my patients. And then the other thing I would say is and I'm a huge fan of this. It's very, very cheap. Baking soda, sodium bicarb. So I'd like to kind of expound upon a little bit on sodium bicarb, Alka-Seltzer Gold. There you go. So Alka-Seltzer Gold is nothing more than baking soda, not Alka-Seltzer. Make sure we're clear. Alka-Seltzer Gold, only can get it on Amazon as far as I know. It's just simply a clean way of getting your sodium bicarb. Otherwise you got the baking soda box, you got a teaspoon, you're trying to put the teaspoon of water, trying to get it to dissolve. It goes everywhere. I just think Alka-Seltzer Gold is so easy to do. Open up the package, throw a couple in bottled water, drink it down. You can do that once or twice a day, and you'll get an amazing effect from that. But some of the things that it does is, so like the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the COVID-19 virus, how it basically works is it has a spike protein that attaches to the ACE2 receptor on our cells. And then basically our body will bring that virus in and try to encapsulate it and try to get rid of it, basically. And the COVID virus, like all viruses, prefers an acidic environment within the cell. And so the more acidic it is, the more that is the breeding grounds for what that virus wants. And so sodium bicarb is a simple way to try to make that cellular material a little bit more basic, so that it's not as fruitful of a breeding ground for the virus as it would be otherwise. That's one of the simple things that you can kind of, look at with sodium bicarb. And then the other thing I was reading about, or maybe I heard it from Dr. Seeds, one of his lectures, is that just simple vitamin D absorption is dramatically improved with sodium bicarb. Most people think they just take vitamin D and everything's great. And for a lot of us, that is the case. But glutathione is kind of the driving force of vitamin D absorption. And sodium bicarb helps that process move along down the pathway. And so sodium bicarb is really good for that. But, sodium bicarb is just overall a really good product for homeostasis of the cells. So again, that proper communication and efficiency. And as I was doing our research, the Spanish flu back around the turn of the 19th century,
1918.
Sodium bicarb was one of their major treatments for the Spanish flu. So this is something that's been around a really long time. I know that I hear a lot of providers out there saying, oh, it's an old wives' tale. It's really not. It can be a very potent product to use for boosting your immune system and protecting yourself against viral and bacterial and fungal infections. I'm certainly not saying, treat COVID with nothing but sodium bicarb, but it's a very helpful addition that everybody practically has at their house, somewhere, some baking soda. If you don't want to buy Alka-Seltzer Gold, it costs a few cents. And, you can actually use it if you do have an acute infection. You can use it every 2 to 4 hours, half a teaspoon every 2 to 4 hours while awake. So I just think it's a really important addition to add to your regimen if you can.
Yeah, I was about to say the 1918 thing, but they use that for flus. They use it for colds, infections, not just
allergies.
Allergies. Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
I think you still should be actually. Still use our antihistamines and our steroid nasal sprays, but it's just because I think one of the important things to think about is there's two major forms of our immune system, the innate and the adaptive phase. And that innate phase is that first phase. It's that basically that phase where we have a very fast reaction. It's actually like when you get sick and you run a fever and you get shakes and you get chills. That's inflammation from the infection entering your cellular level. And that's the innate immune system. And believe it or not, that's kind of why they talk about a little bit about like early on about why not to take Motrin and any of the NSAIDs. If you remember, that was a big deal originally with COVID, and they've kind of backed off that a bit. But if you really think about it, if you really, really kind of think through that, why is that important? Why would I not want to do that? Because you're really not wanting to blunt the innate immune system. The innate immune system, there's a reason why the temperature is going up. There's a reason why you're feeling achy and chills and things of that nature. And it's not that you can't take low doses of those things to kind of just help you get through the symptoms, but that's your body fighting. That is part of the process, and that's where that cellular efficiency gets so important, and that's where the sodium bicarb really comes into play. And so I just think it's, I'm always trying to tie it back into, cellular efficiency, because that's what I truly believe in.
And then the adaptive phase?
Yeah, so the adaptive phase is the more long-term phase, I guess you will say. And so that comes later. And it's extremely important too. It's where your antibodies are produced and you get more of that long-term immunity to things. And so just as important as the innate, but the innate is what we feel. It's what when we know we're sick.
So what are some of the peptides that we don't know about that we would consider that would be a great thing to talk to our physician or our provider? Or if I'm a physician or a provider myself, what are some of the things that we could start suggesting to our patients?
Well, the first and foremost is thymosin alpha-1. During this time, it's a crucial peptide if we're going to use a peptide. I think if there's only one peptide that a practitioner is going to use for modulating the immune system. So we're not trying to make the immune system work harder. We're trying to make it work better. We're trying to get the thymus gland to produce more of these T cells that we need to fight infections, and we're trying to get the current T cells to function better. We don't want to overstress our immune system. That's one of those things. If we kind of like a car, if we run it at 9,000 RPM, for the next 2 hours, we're probably going to have a bad outcome. And so we just want to have that immune system functioning properly. Thymosin alpha 1 is produced in the thymus gland, and that's exactly what it does. It causes us to make more T cells. It causes us to have a better function of those T cells and B cells, and just overall immune function. Has been used extensively for many years. They actually studied it in, what was it, 2002 in China. They had the first SARS outbreak, SARS-CoV-1, and that's actually a lot of the data that's coming out now with SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, is actually based on those studies that they did in 2002. The good thing about the 2002 stuff is that SARS virus was not nearly as infectious as this SARS virus was, but they were similar in their effects on the body. They actually had about a 10% death rate with SARS-CoV-1, but it just only infected, I think, 80,000 or so people. But one of the major peptides that they studied in China was thymosin alpha 1, and they saw significant improvements. And they've actually now had studies out of Italy and China in thymosin alpha 1 with SARS-CoV-2, our current coronavirus infection virus, and they've actually shown a 33% reduction in mortality rate in severe COVID patients. So these are patients that are in the ICU, possibly on a ventilator, and it's kind of touch or go if they're going to make it. Simply by adding in thymosin alpha 1, they've seen a 33% reduction in mortality. There was actually an article that I think is worth discussing that came out last week by NPR, basically blasting physicians for prescribing thymosin alpha 1. And I could not disagree with this article any more strongly. And it was a very, very biased article. And it basically said, how dare physicians try things that aren't 100% FDA approved? If it's not FDA approved, it can't work. And it's such a ridiculous statement, a stance that NPR took. It simply works. It's one of those.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I hate to interrupt, but the absurdity of that statement, thymosin alpha 1, your body produces. This is just a bioidentical version of what your body produces that needs a little supplemental juice, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very biased article. I don't know who was behind it, but and they picked on some poor doctor that made some statements that maybe were, maybe her statements were a little strong, but they actually went after her in this article, and she did some statements apologizing for making. And I'm just like, my gosh, I mean, at the end of the day, I believe healthcare should be between the provider and the patient. And it really got under my skin, that article that we saw. I think it was last Thursday or Friday when it came out. Anyway, I digress on that one. Great peptide. It's the one that I would like the most. There is another peptide that's really good that's called LL37. I like LL37 a lot you can possibly use it in patients that have been exposed to a viral infection. It's a cathepsin, say that 10 times, but and that's another thing about bicarb, going back to that. Cathepsins are natural peptides that we have in our body that are antiviral, antibacterial. Sodium bicarb helps upregulate that system as well.
What does upregulate?
Upregulates the cathepsin peptide stream. And so that's just another reason why sodium bicarb, it will naturally increase your LL37 within your body. Of course, we can supplement LL37 as a peptide. I've used it a few times. Really, to be honest with you, thymosin alpha 1 is my main player when it comes to the immune system. TB4 would be another really good one, thymosin beta 4. And we many times will rotate that one in or out. Thymosin alpha 1 for the providers out there is one that I simply use it all the time. 0.5 cc's twice a week if we're not in an infectious state. And then we can rotate in the TB4 for a month or two at a time, for a round or two at a time, and then bring it back every 3 to 6 months. A really, really good peptide. There's a few others, but I think that for the patients and the providers out there, that's the three that I would probably concentrate on.
Yeah, so we do want to emphasize that the reason that we're having these conversations is to help educate folks that there are other options. This is not medical advice that we're giving. This is for educational purposes, and that you should consult your provider and ask them. We just want to empower you with the information to help you ask better, to have the words to use.
Yeah, and there is momentum building in the United States with peptides. The physician, the provider, um, the amount of providers signing up to learn about peptides is growing at a rapid pace. I really, really believe that in 2 to 5 years, when you talk about peptides, it'll be like talking about testosterone today.
Mm-hmm.
The testosterone really has just skyrocketed the discussion, the educational aspects of it over the last 5 years. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see with peptides over the next 2 to 5 years.
And we're all familiar with peptides already because of the word insulin.
Correct. And like we always say, we have over 7,000 naturally occurring peptides in our body at the moment.
And these, what I was really, I don't know why, but it impressed me that these have been around in animal health. Veterinarians have been prescribing this for animals, for racehorses, for example. Have you ever wondered why these pro athletes, they'll get injured? And it's something that if it happened to me or you, it'd take us like a year to get over. And those guys are back in the game in just weeks. It's because of these peptides.
Well, and I think some of that is obviously these high-end athletes. Like I always tell my guys, because I have a handful of former professional athletes in my practice, and I truly believe that these professional athletes, a guy that used to could hit 20 home runs a year with consistent basis, probably had a much higher growth hormone and testosterone level than an overweight guy who's the same age. And then as they age, those things start to fall. But as you have those higher growth hormone levels and testosterone levels, naturally, you're going to heal faster and better. And then, of course, there's a lot of guys that will turn to some of these sports enhancing products that are out there, whether they are supposed to or not. We've heard lots of stories about that, but there is a big movement. Like Mark Cuban is one of the big proponents of growth hormone in athletes because from listening to him, he's seen the positive effects that it has. And, I'm not necessarily a growth hormone I'm not necessarily 100% in favor of growth hormone, but why shouldn't an athlete be able to use maybe a little bit of CJ, morellin if they have a true injury, that this is going to help them heal faster and better? I think as peptides again become more norm, you're going to start to see a lot of these different organizations starting to actually truly allow some of these different products for certain conditions like healing and things of that nature.
So would BPC 157 be something that you could have an expectation that it's helping your immune system?
It certainly is. It's helping through cell senescence. It is BPC is that all around peptide that is just fantastic. And a lot of times my patients are like, hey, I just want to, I'm already doing hormone replacement. I'm exercising. I'm eating pretty well. I really don't want to have a complicated regimen. What's something that's really simple that's going to kind of give me the most bang for the buck? TA1, 0.5 cc's twice a week subcutaneously, and BPC oral 2 pills a day, 2 capsules a day, excuse me. And now that we've talked about how the BPC is over the counter, it's a really easy, not horrifically cost, regimen that really works well overall for the immune system, cellular efficiency, cell senescence, and all those good things we like to talk about.
All right. So how can we improve our immune system? Well, here's this one: intermittent fasting, doing some exercise, improve your diet a little bit, check on your hormones. Let's get some sleep. Let's maybe some
De-stress a little bit.
Yep. Let's get some Alka-Seltzer Gold going. Maybe some ketone esters. It's just a little food for your cells. And then if your provider's open to it, then maybe you can consider thymosin alpha 1 and the TB4, the LL37.
And one thing, just real quick, on the diet, I really should have probably hammered it home a little harder. Is keeping your sugar content down. These hyperglycemic diets that so many Americans live by, high carb, high glycemic diets, are really counterproductive for overall health, your immune system, and just generally how you feel. And so, certainly not everyone should eat the same diet. I recognize that, but most of my patients, if they would simply limit 5 foods in their diet, they'll do extremely better. Besides the common sense stuff of don't eat cake pies and drink Cokes, okay?
Mhm.
And that is bread, rice, pasta, corn, and potatoes. If you can limit those 5 white foods in your diet, you will feel so much better. And I never tell my patients to take them completely out of their diet. I just say limit them in your diet. Dip from that group 2 to 4 times a week, not 2 to 3 times a day.
A day, yeah. So if you're getting a lot from these episodes or these weekly conversations, please give us a like. Be sure to subscribe, and you can reach out to Dr. Kris here at the Research Clinic, www.theresearchclinic.com. And if you've got a physician that you think ought to talk to Dr. Kris, let's do it. These peptides are a good thing for most people in a lot of situations. Dr. Kris, is there anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's really good. So next week we're taking a hiatus. Dr. Kris is going to go and get some more education on peptides and come back and share it with us the following week. And if I can get my act together, might run a rerun next week at this time. So let's cross our fingers. All right. Thanks, Dr. Kris.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great day.
Yeah, all right.